Welcome to this explainer. We're jumping right into a concept today that literally makes or breaks every single company out there. We're talking about moving from the drawing board to the actual construction site in business. Because, having a great idea is one thing. It's fun, it's theoretical, it happens in comfortable boardrooms. But building that idea into a tangible reality, well, that's an entirely different beast. So today, we're going to explore the absolute essential connection between strategic planning and strategic implementation.
So, I want you to ask yourself, why do so many brilliantly formulated business plans just completely fail? You've probably seen it firsthand. A leadership team spends months, maybe even a year, crafting the absolute perfect strategy. They go on these off-site retreats, they build massive slide decks, but a year later, absolutely nothing has changed on the front lines. There's this massive tension between having a great idea and actually executing it. The gap between the boardroom and the factory floor can be incredibly vast if we don't manage it correctly.
Okay, let's dive into this. We'll be mapping out our journey, starting with the strategic management umbrella, then moving to the blueprint of strategic planning, hierarchies of strategy, the reality check of implementation, overcoming pitfalls, and finally, control, evaluate, and adapt. Part 1. The strategic management umbrella. Right out of the gate, it's really important to understand that strategy isn't just a single event. It's not some document you print out once a year and forget about. It's a continuous living system. Strategic management is an overarching process, and its main focus is the optimal performance of the entire enterprise. It coordinates all those individual units and departments, so they form one concerted, unified effort. Planning and implementation, those are just pieces of this much larger puzzle. It doesn't replace traditional management stuff like organizing or leading. It just integrates them to align the whole organization toward a desired future. Moving to part 2, the blueprint, strategic planning. Now, what's really interesting about this formulation phase is that you can think of it exactly like drawing the architectural blueprint for a new house. And the foundational step in drawing that blueprint is situational analysis. To create a strategy that actually works, you have to look in two directions simultaneously. Externally, you're analyzing macro forces, the economy, technology, legal issues, alongside micro forces like your direct competition. But internally, you're looking within your own walls. You're evaluating your organizational culture, your human resources, your physical assets. The ultimate goal is to find that perfect strategic fit between external market opportunities and your internal capabilities. Part 3, hierarchies of strategy. See, our strategic blueprint isn't just one massive document that every single employee reads. The strategy actually cascades down through 3 primary levels of decision-making. Let's use McDonald's as an example to make this perfectly clear. At the very top, you have corporate strategy. This asks the big question, what business should we even be in? For McDonald's, a corporate strategy decision would be choosing to enter a new industry altogether, like manufacturing kitchen equipment instead of just selling food. Below that is business strategy. This asks, how do we compete in our chosen market? So for McDonald's, this means figuring out how to beat Burger King in fast food, maybe using cost leadership or differentiation. And finally, we have functional strategy, which is all about the specific day-to-day actions of individual departments, like marketing or operations, to actively support that business-level plan. All right, part 4, the reality check, implementation. So now we're officially pivoting from the thinking phase to the doing phase. The vision is set, sure, but who is actually going to do the work? There's a really sharp contrast here. Strategic planning focuses on the what and the why, but strategy implementation, that focuses on the who, the where, the when, and the how. Planning is drawing the map, but implementation is getting behind the wheel, turning the key, and actually driving the car. It's the action-oriented phase where those formulated plans are put into practice through budgets and daily procedures. They are literally 2 sides of the exact same coin. One is completely useless without the other. And that brings us to this famous myth of great strategy, lousy implementation. Well, according to strategic management sources, that phrase is a complete misdiagnosis of failure. Think about it. If a strategy fails because it cannot be implemented by the company, it wasn't a great strategy. It was a poorly formulated strategy to begin with. Formulating a strategy without taking into account your organization's actual capacity to implement it is just fundamentally flawed. I absolutely love this quote from former GE CEO Jack Welch. He says, in reality, strategy is actually very straightforward. You pick a general direction and implement like hell. I mean, he hit the nail on the head right there. Successful strategy execution is a deeply action-oriented, make things happen kind of task. It requires immense discipline, driving continuous improvement, and constantly pushing your teams to beat their performance targets. It is definitely not for the faint of heart.
Part 5. Overcoming Implementation Pitfalls.
So the crucial point is, how do businesses actually survive this incredibly difficult execution phase without getting totally bogged down? Well, you have to fulfill a few prerequisites. First, you must institutionalize the strategy. That means whoever came up with it needs to passionately defend it and communicate it clearly so it isn't undermined by resistance. Second, you have to create an effective organizational climate, one filled with cooperation. Third, allocate your resources and budgets properly to actually fund these new initiatives. And fourth, establish a supportive structure. Oh, and here's a pro tip from the sources. If you want to keep employees motivated and less resistant to all this change, you absolutely must link their performance and their pay directly to these new strategic goals.
And finally, Part 6. Control, Evaluate, and Adapt. But what happens when the environment shifts right beneath your feet? You need a continuous feedback loop. Tools like a balanced scorecard brilliantly illustrate how modern organizations keep things on track. It's a great reminder that we can't just look at financial metrics when we evaluate our strategy. We need to measure management efficiency across 4 different perspectives: financial, customer, internal business processes, and learning and growth. Getting this comprehensive view ensures we're tracking the right data, which lets us adapt our implementation instantly when things don't go exactly as planned. Let's ground all this theory in the real world with a fascinating case study on Walmart. When the COVID-19 pandemic hit the US in early 2020, Walmart faced a massive reality check. Their existing plans had to shift overnight, but their strategic implementation was highly agile. They responded immediately, they flawlessly adapted their operations to follow CDC guidelines for the safety of their associates and customers, and simultaneously, they proactively strengthened their massive supply chain to meet a totally unprecedented surge in consumer demand. Because they proactively implemented this adapted strategy, the results were just staggering. By April 2020, Walmart saw a 460% growth in average daily downloads for their grocery app, compared to just 3 months prior in January. To put that into perspective, they captured incredible market share precisely because their strategy wasn't rigid. Their implementation adapted to the environmental scanning they were doing in real time. Which leaves me with a final, provocative question for you to ponder today. Is your organization's strategy a living, breathing blueprint that actually guides daily action? Or is it just a document gathering dust on a shelf somewhere? Remember, a blueprint without a construction crew is literally just a piece of paper. Planning and implementation must forever go hand in hand if you want to achieve exceptional performance. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I hope you feel empowered to take your next big idea all the way to the finish line.